Much. Hey folks, good evening and welcome to Center Theater here in Dover-Foxcroft as we celebrate the unveiling of a brand new book, Last One Out of Town, Turn Out the Lights, by Dave Albee, the gentleman sitting right next to me here. Why don't we give him a round of applause first? And behind us we have the Foxcroft Academy Band. They're playing the horse. Everyone remembers the horse, right? I don't know if it's loud. Can you hear that out there? Can we turn that up, Mr. Bushman? Now, it's not 100 people in the band like it was in 1975. Thank you. But it still is pretty good. You can fade that out, Mr. Bushman. So again, I want to thank you, and welcome you here to Center Theater here in Dover-Foxcroft. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Toby Nelson. I'm the Director of External Affairs at Foxcroft Academy, and I did not get my uncle's height. So unfortunately for me, he scored more points in the Orono game than I scored in my complete career at Foxcroft Academy. But I will live vicariously through him for the rest of my living days. And I want to welcome you here to Center Theater as we open this book up. Now, you're getting a book literally, about a week before it's out on Amazon. So you can sell it on eBay now for much more than what it's worth, okay, tonight. You can get that over with. What we want to do tonight is we're obviously going to talk about the book, talk about a few stories in it. You folks are going to read all about this over the next couple of days and have the opportunity to relive some history. We have some people in the audience that probably many people were here. Some of you weren't here. I wasn't. I was born in 1977, okay? So I literally don't know any of this in the sense I was not there, but through the stories of the players, the coaches, cheerleaders, through talking to David over the years, I feel like I was there at the Augusta Civic Center on February 28, 1975, when Foxcroft beat Madomic Valley 56-53. Now, we have a lot of people in the crowd tonight, and we have one gentleman here, and he's actually wearing a Madomic Valley jacket. And he's right in the middle. He's putting his hand up right now. We do want to welcome Al Barron, who played for the Madomic Valley Panthers. And Al has been one of the most gracious people that you would ever meet that lost a state championship game. In the sense he's talked about it, he's relived history. He and Kevin have done a series of interviews that you'll see over the next couple of days on WLBC out of Bangor, New Center, Maine. Also with Lincoln County Television. Larry Seidlinger from Lincoln County Television has done a great job. Welcome, Larry, to here tonight. And you're going to be able to hear a lot of stories that you won't be able to hear tonight. But we're going to talk to these guys here right now. So the book, Dave, let's first off, let's talk about the book. Why this book? Why this time?
Well,
we on?
Great. Can you hear me? It's very personal to me. Obviously, I was a Foxcroft Academy graduate, worked for the Observer, and have covered this team when they won the state championship and the build-up to the state championship. So it's always been in my mind about doing something like this, but I always remember, and I've had an opportunity in my sports writing career to cover Super Bowls and big events like the Bears winning the Super Bowl in '85 and in Stanford being in the NCAA division, NCAA Final Four in '98. And then I got together, came back from my high school reunion in 2022 and got reconnected with Dwayne Dewey Warren, who I believe is in the audience tonight.
And Dwayne.
And we had a conversation, and Dwayne was inducted into the Foxcroft Academy Athletics Hall of Fame.
By the way, for that, Dwayne brought the biggest crowd we ever had for an athletic Hall of Fame. We had like 50 people there just cheering for him. So we normally have like 10 total. So Dwayne brought the house down that night.
So basically, what happened was that I had written a piece for Dwayne for the induction ceremony, and he read it, and he knew I had been a sports writer. And he goes, Dave, this is great. Why have you never written a book? So in the next like 2 or 3 weeks, he and I are talking on the telephone every night. He's calling me up at like midnight in Connecticut, and I'm out in California at 9 o'clock, and we talk till like 1 or 2 in the morning. And we sort of settled. He goes, why don't you write a story? We went back and forth. Why don't you write a story about the '75 team? And again, I was 19, 20 years old, and I'm wide-eyed and don't know anything about what I'm doing. I'm just winging it then. But through my career as a writer, as a reporter, as a columnist, you get a different lens as an adult to see everything. And I said, I missed so many things on what happened with that championship and everything that led up to the championship. And that's basically what the book became. And you know, the process started of interviewing. And I think the first interview I did was like November of 2022, yeah. So it's 2 years and 4 months in the making to get to this point. But from that conversation came the idea of doing a book, and then once the interviewing started, and I talked to these two gentlemen over here to my right, it just took off. I mean, it's just been a blast.
So that's where my next question comes to. So in November of 2022, you want to write a book, and the two gentlemen sitting next to me, Kevin Nelson and Skip Hanson, were the first two people that you called.
Yeah, first two people. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to ask them. You folks can answer, but do you remember much of the conversation, or you thought, was there enough information to write a book on this one? I'm guessing the conversation was long.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was long.
Yeah.
Many thanks go out to my wife, who actually was awake during most of those late night conversations. So we appreciated that. But yeah, this was quite an eye opener for me, and for David to chronicle this with a passion that he has was just meant a great deal to me. And I am sure it meant a great deal to my teammates as well, to be able to go through this and recall some very, very special memories.
Skip, I'll ask you the same thing. Do you remember the initial conversation with Dave as far as talking about the book and his ideas behind what the book may become?
Yes, I did. I remember it well, but as Kevin said, the memories are still pretty fresh. It's been quite a while, but it was a fabulous time. The teammates that Kevin had and his leadership meant so much to the team and to the audiences and stuff, and forever grateful for that.
I should note, Toby, that when Skip, I think, was the first person I talked to, and I knew I would be asking a lot of questions, and I told Skip at the beginning, I said, Skip, if you ever get tired, or if this becomes boring, or this and that, let's just call quits, you know, and we'll come back to it some other time. I don't want you guys to be tired or about this. And I said, you know, when you get to 45 minutes to 1 hour, let's cut it off if you feel that way. And sort of the same thing with Kevin, and those 1 hour conversations wound up being 2 hour conversations.
And they never really stopped,
No,
did they?
no.
So the book itself, when you open the first chapter, they talk about Monson Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And when you wrote this book, I don't remember when you started talking to me about it, you said, you can't really tell the story about the 74-75 Foxcroft Academy basketball team without telling the story about Monson Academy and the closure and consolidation, which a lot of you lived through back in the 1960s. Because in the 60s, you had small schools, and out on the souvenir area out there where it has some memorabilia, I have an old Monson Academy megaphone that has a schedule from 1965, and they played Anson and Solon and Harmony and East Corinth. Those schools aren't around anymore, and they weren't around, you know, in the late 60s, those schools were going out of style. Yep. Monson Academy goes out, so you couldn't tell that story without Monson Academy. Talk about that chapter and what that meant, because you said probably it's the saddest chapter of the book.
Yeah, I think so, because that was what happened, the consolidation, and just talking to Kevin about it. And the book begins with Kevin basically as a fifth grader, 5'10", 5'11" then, as a fifth grader, big guy. So Kevin was in the gymnasium at Monson when the team came back from winning the 1968 state championship, Class S in Portland, and sort of did the whole ceremony through his eyes, and he's thinking at that time that he's going to wind up playing at Monson Academy and winning multiple state championships with Monson Academy. And I mean, mere months later, comes the vote for the consolidation, and all of a sudden, the vote comes back, and it was very tight, and Monson had the most number of votes, and they elected to come with the consolidation. And then, you know, the last season, 1967-69 season, was Monson Academy's last basketball season, and Monson Academy had a tremendous basketball tradition. an immense civic pride towards that team. And it was devastating for the town, and it divided the town and what was going on, and it sort of began with that. But in all of those difficult times and sad stories, I found a lot of great stories. Glenn Poole, who's here, was the president of the Monson Historical Society, very helpful to do this. Steve and Alan Bray are here. They were very helpful in things. And from all the tough, sad stuff, I also get some great stories about some of the old-time gymnasiums that you'll enjoy and get a few chuckles out when you read the book.
Well, speaking of Monson Academy, Mr. Bushman, I think our first video, it's actually audio, but let's relive a little history here tonight. Let's go all the way back to 1968 to the Portland Expo, when the Monson Slaters won the state championship. This is a little bit before the Foxcroft Academy ponies. Mr. Bushman.
Outside, Cronholm dropping a key now. The pass goes to Taylor. Underneath to Woodard for the layup. It's good. 64-57 with 20 seconds to play. Monson has it tucked away. Here's Flanagan. Can't shoot. Stroud of Casco can't. Over to Proctor, who does. His shot is up. No good. Rebound Proctor. Right back up. No good. Now there are 9 seconds left to play. Monson has the basketball. Giving the rebound off the board. The right corner of the drive, Landers. He's tied up and they call the jump ball with 3 seconds left to play. 64-57. Monson. Landers and Cram, they jump. The tap goes to Monson's. Woodard, he jumps it, fires it, no good, but the gun sounded. And Monson, the Eastern Maine champion, came in here against the Western Maine champion in process. They have walked off with the state process championship.
That's the state championship game, 64-57. Monson Academy with a win. And that was Mike Norton from WPOR, was also broadcast on WABI radio, AM 910 back in the day. I got that reel-to-reel, literal reel-to-reel back in 15 years ago, and it took me a couple days because it kept breaking every time I was trying to digitize it. But it was so worth it. I have the whole complete game. If you go on YouTube, just search in Monson Slaters 1968, you can listen to the complete game on YouTube. A cheap plug for my YouTube channel. So again, Monson Academy closes. Kevin, at that point, again, a school-age kid thinking, hey, I'm going to be a possibility of being able to win a championship or multiple championships with Monson Academy. Playing in the Quonset hut up in Monson, but it still was a state-of-the-art gym for the time. And now all of a sudden, you're not going to be playing for Monson. How did that feel as a kid?
Yeah, I'm in 5th grade, 67-68 school season. I'm in 5th grade, and I remember going to the game. I remember going to Portland with my mother and father and witnessing that in the Portland Expo. And so I'm, my thought and my teammates back when we were playing in 5th grade and 6th grade, our thoughts were, yeah, we're going to be playing for Monson Academy. And back then, we weren't very good in in elementary school. We did not have a very good team, and in fact, we got beat very badly by a lot of local teams, Dexter, Dover, Milo, Greenville, Guilford, and we particularly got pasted by Dover Grammar School. And I remember scores of 65-7, 59-8, things like that. And so here I am in 5th grade in Monson, and I'm seeing my varsity team, who, by the way, the coach of the varsity team in Monson Academy, and some of us have talked about that, was Gary Webb. He was my 5th and 6th grade teacher, one of my favorite teachers of all time as well. But we're thinking, okay, it might be bad now when we're playing in elementary school and losing by these huge margins, but we could play in high school. We'll be playing, varsity for Monson Academy in Class S basketball. But as David mentioned, shortly thereafter, that kind of changed, and didn't kind of change. It did change, and we just moved on. So,
Skip, I'll ask you. Around that same time, you had the opportunity. You were at Higgins Classical Institute as a coach, a dorm parent. I don't know if I'd have wanted to have you as a dorm parent, but they did. And then you had the opportunity, because of a happenstance meeting with Lap Larry at Merritt Square Market, to maybe come back here to Foxcroft Academy. And what was the decision like? I know Peg obviously had a big part of that decision, but what was that decision like to come back to your alma mater to be the coach and a teacher at Foxcroft Academy?
I was elated to do it, very proud to go back to Foxcroft and coach. First time I saw Kevin Nelson, I said, I am more than very glad to go back and coach. I'm delighted. And it was a great opportunity. And guys like Kevin and the first group of athletes that we had make up the basketball team was outstanding. And I want to tell you, a lot of the credit, and he'll never take it, goes to Kevin. Because best player on the court most of the time, he never ever took credit. He gave the credit to his teammates, to the coaches, to everybody. And he gave 100% all the time. So not only to coach him, but the other folks too, they were great. But obviously, Kevin was the best. And when he would get upset with himself, he never got upset with other players, the coaches, or anything. He took the burden on himself and really became an all-star and was the backbone of the teams that he played on.
So we get into the late 60s, early 70s, Dave, and when the consolidation happens, Monson Academy students now come to Foxcroft Academy, and Skip's first couple of years at Foxcroft, they won some games and lost some games, but the fact is they were becoming a little bit of a contender there in Class B, other than the fact you had to play Skank and Orono and some of these other schools, and that's what it kind of always seemed to come down to.
Yeah, there's always Skink and Orono on the roadblock to going far in the tournament. You know, when Skip was in high school, Foxcroft never made the tournament, and as everybody knows, when you start a basketball season, the number one goal is to make the tournament. That's what you want to do. And Foxcroft had gone through a really tough period of time. I think it was from 1951 to 1962. It was like a 12-year period that they didn't make the tournament, but Monson did, Guilford did, Milo did, Brownville Junction did, Dexter did, Greenville did. They would make the tournament, and Foxcroft wasn't. And Skip comes in, and it's a tough thing to come into your hometown and have to coach players who you essentially know, and you know their parents, and that's a really difficult thing to come into. But Skip had a plan, and he stuck to the plan, and you know, eventually you see this sort of rise up to, you know, from 8th seed to 7th seed, then we jump up to 4th seed. So he was making progress, and obviously Kevin came in as a freshman and started as a freshman, started all 4 years. It's starting to build, and Skip's making a difference, and is finally got to the point where they could beat Skink or compete with Skink and compete with Orono and finally beat Orono, and that was a great time.
Kevin, I'll ask you a little bit about this, that when you're playing some of these schools as a freshman, you come as a freshman, and I think in the book it talks about Coach Hanson and Coach Kaya. Coach Dennis Kaya is out there tonight. Let's give him a round of applause. You're kind of given the option as to whether do you stay and play JV or freshman at the time, or have the opportunity to move up to a varsity level. And you know, you think about, well, am I going to get pushed around or bullied, or you know, not being part of the team? But the fact is, you had some players that were juniors and seniors that kind of took you under the wing and made you feel like you were part of something.
Totally good point. Just what happened, I mean, I got the opportunity, the offer, I should say, to play. This is crazy. Well, how this happened. They said you can play on the varsity or you can play freshman. You can't play JV. So what is it? What do you want to do? All right, I'll play on varsity if you want me to play. So I decided to do that. And what was special about that was that roster that we had of players. Our co-captains that year, my freshman year, were Jerry White and Dwayne Moore. And you know, as a freshman coming in, you couldn't have had two better sort of role model players to be co-captains, because I was never made to feel that I was a freshman on that team. In fact, oftentimes, I mean, Jerry would pull me aside and, you know, make suggestions on what to do here, what to do there, either during a game or in practice, and never with, you know, never with any condescension at all. And I think some of my current teammates sort of got that same feel from Jerry, and as well as Dwayne. So you know, they treated me like an equal, and I think that helped me a great deal in terms of my confidence. There's no question about that.
And in that freshman season, the Ponies made it to the tournament again, number 7 seed. And you normally, if you play the 8 seed, you always play Skank because they're number 1. Well, that year, Skank happened to be the number 2 seed. So Foxcroft gets number 7, Skank, and loses 84-50. Okay, but it was the playoffs, and we talked about getting to the Bangor Auditorium at the time. It meant something, and so the Ponies were on that little trajectory. 73, the next year, Dave. Now we start talking about, we can start to compete a little bit. This Pony team is competing with Skank and competing with Orono. Maybe not beating them, but competing, and that's where things started to take a ride to the right trajectory.
Yeah, the team sort of came together around Christmas time. After sort of a bit of a tongue lashing by Skip at Milo, if I remember correctly, and after that they ended up with a record, I think that year, of 13-5, but it was like their best record in a great number of years, and they end up playing, and again they end up playing Skink in the quarterfinals, and this time they actually had a lead in the 4th quarter, and I think Kevin fouled out of that game, and Skink comes back to win, but I think it was the first time. And I mean, Skink, like the average victory of Skink over Foxcroft was something like 23 points a game, and I think they only lost by 8, I believe, in that thing. But it was a show. They had potential coming up, and things are starting to get exciting around here.
Skink at that time was coached by Ron Marks, who had coached Foxcroft for 1 year, actually the year before Skip came.
Yeah.
Coach, do you have any? Are there any coaches from back in the day, from back in the 60s and 70s that you really had good relationships with? Was Ron one of them? Were there other coaches that you can remember that you could kind of lean on for some advice when the going got tough?
Yeah, good relationships with all the coaches. I mean, you know, most of the coaches were class acts and did all they could to win, but if they didn't, they knew how to take the loss and stuff. And of course, I'd rub it to Ron Marks every once in a while. Summer basketball, I said, "Did we play you last year?" "Oh yeah, we did." And he is a good sport about it. Is Dennis Kyer in the yard?
He's here.
Yes, he's here.
Dave Clement?
No, Dave
Could not make it tonight.
I can't see beyond you.
He's out there, trust me.
He's over there.
There's been a
Yeah.
Okay. And those two gentlemen did so much for Foxcroft basketball. First class acts, did great with their teams, whether it was freshmen or JVs, helping out with the varsity, and forever grateful for what they added to the programs.
I'm surprised we couldn't hear Dennis. He's really quiet. He's always been a quiet guy. You don't really hear much from him. So.
Dennis did not bring the starter pistol with him.
He did not. Story in the book, so make sure you read that one. So let's move on. So in 1973, you beat Hamden in the quarterfinals, and you lose to Skank by a couple points in the semifinals. But it's upward trajectory. 1974, first game of the season, Orono. Dave, talk about that one.
The first game of the season?
First game of the season in 1973-74, so not the championship season.
Oh, you mean the game I covered? That was my first game.
That was your first game?
That was the first game I ever covered, yeah.
Let's talk about that.
No, okay, this is, it's unbelievable.
That's why we're here tonight.
Yeah. I had gone to a radio broadcasting school in Boston, discovered that I had a Maine accent, so I wasn't going to be very good at broadcasting. So I came back to Dover-Foxcroft and needed to pay off my college loan and went to work for the A&P grocery store, which is now, I think, Penguis over here on North Street. And during this period of time, I got to know the sports editor at the Piscataquis Observer at the time, Ree Miller. Her husband was the town manager in Dover-Foxcroft at the time, and Ree would come in once a week to get groceries, and I would strike up a conversation with her. Well, one day she came in, and it was before Foxcroft was going to open up the season against Orono. Foxcroft had probably its best team in 20 years, and Orono was the defending state champions. They were playing at Orono that Saturday night, so she came in the middle of the week and said, "Ree, are you going to the big game tonight?" And she says, "No, I'm not. I really don't know a lot about basketball, and for whatever reason, and thank God these words came out of my mouth, would you like me to do the game for you?" So she said, "Sure, go ahead." So on Saturday night, I go down to Orono, cover the game. I come back on Sunday, I write out the story, the game story, longhand. Didn't have a typewriter, didn't know how to use a typewriter. Wrote it out longhand. On Monday, I turned the game story into the Observer, which is located down here. And on Tuesday, Jim Thompson, the editor-publisher of the Piscataquis Observer, calls me up and offers me a full-time job. So that's how my 35-year sports writing career started.
Ponies lost that opening season game.
It was a tight game. Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, the differential between free throws was pretty bad in Orono's favor. So I would probably blame the officiating.
Officiating screwed us once again. So we'll get to that here in just a moment.
Yes, we will.
So Foxcroft loses to Orono that night, but after that, things started to roll better for Foxcroft. And then later on in the season, they get Orono at home.
Yes.
And that might have been probably the biggest crowd we've ever had at Foxcroft Academy at the time.
I think without question. In fact, your father said that might have been one of the best games, and maybe the top 5 best games in the history of high school basketball in Maine. And I don't know if many of you people remember that game, but it was packed. And Orono came in with a 33-game winning streak, and I think Foxcroft had won 9 in a row after losing the season opener at Orono. And just I think I got there before the JV game started, and it was already packed. People who got there late had to stand up on the baselines. They had to stand up in the stairwell going to the stage. I mean, it was packed. I don't know what the seating capacity was. I think it was about 900 to 1,000, but I bet there'd be at least 1,200, and I say maybe 1,400 in that thing. There was no fire marshal around, obviously. The place was packed, and big game, and Foxcroft comes out, and Orono goes to a 19-4 lead after the first period, and that's when Skip stepped in and had a little bit of a message for the team between the first and second quarter. And the Ponies came back. They got within 2 at halftime, and they end up winning the game. And the place just went delirious. It was, I mean, again, I think before that game, there was a point where Foxcroft played Orono 35 times, and 34 times Orono won. So this was a big, huge moment in Foxcroft Academy basketball history. They finally got Orono.
And they beat them 58-56 that night. Kevin, what do you remember about that game?
I got poked in the eye. I did.
You did.
I went down like I just remember, and all the teammates, whether you're on JV or the varsity squad as well, the number of people in the gym, for us in this small little universe we lived in, the number of people in that gym was impressive. And I had a picture of just what David said. People were in this. I can't believe Roland Zwicker let that happen. The number of people, and the JV game before that
It's a great game too.
was filled. I mean, the place was, so just the number of people there was the most impressive statistic to me, and the fact that the game was tight all the way after we clawed our way back, and it was something that I won't ever forget the size of the crowd, for sure.
Snapped along Orono a winning streak, and then the Ponies kept winning, and you kept winning, and you kept winning, and you get to the tournament. And again, you win your quarterfinal, and you win your semifinal. So they've done, we started 72, they lose in the quarterfinals. 73, they lose in the semifinals. 74, they're in the regional finals with a chance to go to the state championship game. And who do they play? The Orono Red Riots. So they played Orono twice. They had split. I think it was a 1-point game at Orono, a 2-point game at Foxcroft. and we go to the regional championship game. Mr. Bushman, I have some highlights if you would show. This is 1974, the Class B championship. There's no audio to this, but these highlights are courtesy of WABI TV5 in Bangor.
Wow.
So we're coming up on the very end here, Kevin with a free throw. And we're down 54-52 at this point, and Foxcroft with one last chance right here. And that's how it ended. And in just a moment, you'll see Kevin and Kevin with the runner-up trophy, and they're very impressed.
This is after I kicked the chair, actually. So, just thought I'd mention that.
We can fade out of that, Mr. Bushman. So that is Foxcroft and Orono, 54-52. Dave, you talk a lot about this one. Tell a story about the Phantom Foul.
The Phantom Foul. People remember the Phantom Foul? Skip, you're going to have your chance here to talk about the Phantom Foul. But Foxcroft was leading in the fourth quarter, seemed to be in control of the game, had the momentum. Tommy Filbert's Orono star goes up for a shot. He makes it, and there's a whistle for a foul. And Del Mero was the official, and he called a foul on Kevin, his fifth foul, so he's disqualified from the game. And Kevin was obviously upset about it. And Tom Philbrick, and I tracked Tom down at his Lobster Wharf restaurant in Boothbay Harbor to confirm this. I heard the story that Tom went to the officials at Delhi, no one touched me. And the official, generally any referee is gonna make a call, they're gonna keep the call, they're not gonna change their call. So Tommy ends up making the three-point play and he scores again, and I don't think Foxcroft didn't score in the last 3 minutes. Kevin's out of the game, and momentum just went from one side to the other. It's just incredible, but I think, and I'll let Skip confirm this, but when Tommy was telling the official, Del Mero, that no one touched him, Skip overheard this, that Tom Philbrick was being honest, and Skip says, to this day, I hold Tom Philbrick in such high esteem for being so honest.
Is that a true story, Skip?
True story.
Yeah.
And, I was very calm throughout that. I knew it turned towards us.
Yeah.
So Foxcroft loses 54-52, but again, upward trajectory, a regional finalist now. But that 73-74 team was pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And so you have three seniors on that team that are going to graduate, not coming back the next year. And now what?
Well, Kevin's coming back and Jeff Dunn's coming back, but the rest of the team that was coming was very inexperienced at the varsity level. And I mentioned this in the book, is that Kevin and all the players on the team his senior year also played together on the Dover Grammar School team in 8th grade, and they were undefeated. So they were an undefeated dream team as 8th graders, and they sort of reunite for the senior year. So they had great team chemistry, and we talk about that. But then it was just, everything came together. I mean, everyone's hitting on every cylinder. Skip's doing a tremendous job keeping everybody together. Skip's a big disciple of Dean Smith at North Carolina, and he passed that on to his players. And Kevin can talk about that, but it came together, and I think the old classic cliche team effort. That's what it was.
So we get to the 74-75 season. We'll jump ahead to that. And you all know what happens, but hey, we got to dig into some of this stuff. In 74-75, Kevin, I'll start with you. Was there a point in time during that season where you felt like, we got something here? This could be the year. Was there a game, a practice, a moment, a team bonding session? Was there something that you said, we got something?
Yeah, going into the season, and I'll defer to some of my teammates on this as well, but going into that season, we know we had I think Skip has selected a very good team. We were a team of I could characterize our team as a group of fearless, athletic competitors. That's what we were. And so going into that season, we had lost 3 veteran starting very good players in Kevin Saunders and Eric Annis, our point guard, and in Junior Bradbury. So we lost them. But we had 6 people coming back, 6 or 7. So the point where I thought, maybe this can turn into something. I think it probably had to be the Orono game in Orono High School, and we reached that point. But then there was a game after that made me nervous, and that was Nokomis, of all schools. They always made me nervous. We had beaten them by 30 points, I think, early in the year, and then we played them again, and we did not beat them by that many points this time. So I guess you could probably say the second Orono game of that season was a kind of for me, it said, you know what, maybe we will run the table. I don't know, maybe.
Skip, I'll ask you the same question. You saw this team inside and out, backwards, forwards. Was there a game or a time that you said, I feel pretty confident that we can do something this year, maybe go even a step further than what we've done the years before? Was there a time?
Yes, I want to say one thing that made the team very good. Not only was he a great basketball player, but he never took credit for ever accomplishing anything on the court. And he'd always give the credit to subs or the starting 5 or something, but it made a big difference. We'd go in at halftime in the locker room, and I'd get on Kevin just as hard as I would other players, and he'd always say, "You're right, coach. You're right, coach." And that, I think, it's such a lasting memory for the other players, because Kevin never made sure that he rose above anybody else. He was a strictly team player, and it meant so much during that season.
So the Ponies run the table.
He didn't even mention he scored 47 points in that game.
Yeah, he had 47 points in the Orono game, winning 60-52, and yeah, that's when. But that might have, as far as game-wise, Foxcroft didn't play great down the stretch when you finished out the regular season. Last game of the season, Kevin, I just learned this because we talked, but you weren't feeling well over to Milo, and it was 50 years ago last night that Foxcroft finished off the regular season unbeaten with a 67-54 win over Penquist. But a much closer game than it probably could have been. You had some teammates that stepped up big time then.
Absolutely. You guys, I'm just looking at my guys in the front row, and I'm thinking, that day, the rule in school, I don't know if it still is a rule, if you didn't go to school because you were sick and you had a game that night, you were playing. I'd never missed a game in my entire high school career. Never missed a game. And I was not going to miss that game that night at Penquist 50 years ago yesterday. And I just remember feeling, I was in class all day. I felt horrible. It just felt terrible. Went to the game that night, and we eked out a win. We had some big time step up performances by players, and just Jeff and Dick had and everybody else just so we won that game, but we kind of sputtered a little bit in the last couple games of the season, and going into the tournament we kind of sputtered our first game of the tournament. I won't get ahead of you on this one, but that it was a little bit concerning, I guess you'd say.
Well, let's move to the tournament. 18-0 Ponies. And we have some more video highlights for you. This is from February 20th, 1975. Foxcroft and Limestone. The Eagles were the number 7 seed. Foxcroft, the number 2 seed. Remember, you weren't number 1 that year as far as the heel points, but number 1 in our hearts, definitely. And so, Mr. Bushman, if we can play these highlights from WLBZ TV from 1975, and the voice on this is Don Kerrigan, who's still working.
The afternoon was billed as a mismatch of sorts, with the unbeaten ponies of Foxcroft rated a disputed number 2 against the number 7 Limestone Eagles. Despite the records, it was a top-notch game. Limestone was a fired-up team, and they made Foxcroft work for every point they got. Brilliant shooting and very able floor play by center Kevin Kilmer and guard Dana Lawrenson kept the Eagles alive and within sight of the ponies. But the record of the season ended up telling the story for Foxcroft. They came through with a 10-point win. The ponies' brilliant center Kevin Nelson directed the offense and was intimidating off the boards, blocking shots and hauling down rebounds. But he didn't have one of his best scoring games of the year. Forward Dick Hatt fired for 20 points and played an excellent floor game, along with flashy guard Dave Ingraham. Foxcroft led 38-23 at the half, 54-38 after 3 quarters. Nelson fouled out with 2:39 left to go, and Limestone started to eat away at the lead, cutting it down to 10 points by the final buzzer. Nelson's 22 points and Hatt's 20 led the scoring for the ponies. For Limestone, Kilmer had 21 and Lawrenson had 20. The final score was Foxcroft 65, Limestone 55.
So that was from 1975, February 20th from 1975. So, okay, let's talk about this one quickly, 65-55, but I know, Coach Hanson, you weren't particularly impressed with the effort early on by your pony team, is that correct?
Yeah, I think. You know, one of the things about coaching good people, I could go into the locker room. Kevin would have a great first half, and I'd give it to him about the game, how lousy we were playing. And Kevin never said a word. Yeah, you're right, Coach. You're right, Coach. And continue to talk about that. And the whole team would go back out and have a whole different shield on them. So that was good.
Anything on that one, Kevin?
No.
65-55. I do want to mention Limestone. They were coached, I don't know if many of you know Bill Cassavant, who was a longtime coach. He just passed away back in December. But a wonderful man up in Aroostook County, a broadcaster, coach. Just a lot of the ties that tie things in. Also in the quarterfinals that year, the MCI Huskies, they were coached by Tony Hamlin. He had just graduated from the University of Maine, and of course went on to great success at South Portland High School and came back to his alma mater at Pinquist Valley and won 2 state championships, and would have been here tonight actually had it not been for a prior engagement. He's quoted quite a bit in the book. So 65-55 win though, Dave, so the ponies move on anyway.
Well, Limestone was, if I'm not mistaken, since I wrote it I should remember, but they came down, I think it was like the first time in like 20 years they've been in a tournament, and you know, teams from Aroostook County, from the northern part of the state, when they go to a tournament, they bring the whole town with them. They're coming down, so they were really fired up for that. And Foxcroft had a comfortable lead in the fourth quarter. I think they had a 14-point lead, and then Kevin fouls out of the game, and that was the only game that Kevin fouled out of all year. And Foxcroft fans will remember whenever Kevin got in foul trouble, wherever Kevin fouled out, the anxiety level just went up this way. So. But there was some big plays at the end. Scotty Mountford had a big pass and a big basket that came off the bench. Dick Hatt too. Dick Hatt had a great game. I think Dick, when I talked to him, he said that he remembers Skip coming up after the game and sort of patting him on the back and saying, "Thank you, sort of rescued us tonight."
So the ponies win and move on to the semifinals, and they don't play a team that they know well. It's Van Buren in the semifinals. And it's our next video highlight package. No audio with this one, I'm sorry, but it's from February 21st, 1975, Ponies and the Van Buren Crusaders. The slow-mo, but I think he misses. Yeah. 74-41, the final of this one. Ponies win by 33 points. Dave, this is the best they've played in years.
Yeah, they after the Orono, after the game that Kevin talked about and Skip talked about at Orono, they sort of struggled after that. You know, I think they came out of that thinking we're going to run the table after beating Orono, and they just struggled. I mean, they were winning and they were winning hands, but they weren't playing well. They were turning the ball over a lot. And this game was like, all of a sudden, this is the team we remember during the middle of the season, and they just destroyed Van Buren that night and set up the championship game.
And again, the number 2 seed Ponies, they didn't play the number 1 seed MDI Trojans. When MDI was number 1, they were 12-6 that year. They got a couple big heel point wins. MDI, the number 1 seed, lost to number 4, Orono, in the semifinals. So it set up Foxcroft and Orono. Now, maybe, Kevin, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because had you gone number 1, not that you wouldn't have beaten Orono, but you'd have to play him in the semis. It just didn't seem like it would have been right.
No, it just wouldn't have been. And this is the third time that season we got to play against them. And you know, I think that's what people, I think fans wanted to see that in Class B. There's no question in Eastern Maine. So.
Our final piece of video footage tonight, the actual video, is from February 22nd, 1975. The Foxcroft Ponies, the Orono Red Riots, the Class B Eastern Maine Championship.
In Class B, it's going to be a contest of the state's big men once again. Last year, it was Tom Philbrick against Charlie Wooten. This time around, Kevin Nelson against Alan Barrett. Although both Foxcroft and Madomic boast excellent, well-rounded teams, the duel between those two giants will definitely be the one to watch in that contest. Nelson dominated the board Saturday night and scored 31 points to pace the Ponies in their 73-49 drubbing of Orono. Barron, meanwhile, poured through for 36 points as Madomic edged Mexico 91-82. In the game up here, the Red Riots were just overmatched underneath and from outside as well, with Pony Ken Burchell flying for 22 points. Orono's Bert Philbrick did yeoman work under the boards trying to contain Nelson and scored 13 points as well. For the Orono Red Riots, it was their third straight bid for the Eastern Class B title. They won it the last 2 years in a row. One of those years produced a state crown. This year, they just couldn't do it, and Foxcroft was not to be denied.
There you go. 73-49. The game, though, the final score, 73-49, the game was a lot closer than that.
It was.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, it was at halftime, and Skip had a message again at halftime for Kevin and a team. But that second half, they came out really strong. Kenny Burchell, who's here tonight, had an incredible second half, and they, from into the third quarter, into the fourth quarter, Foxcroft just dominated. I think Foxcroft scored 30 of the game's final 41 points, and one going away. I want to think that it might have been the Foxcroft's biggest win, maybe ever, over Orono at that point. And the crowd's reaction, both after the game and when we got back here to Dover-Foxcroft and had a reception at Foxcroft Academy, was just incredible.
You know, I don't mean to put humor on everything, but I will say this. Yeah, one of the things I remember about that game at the end, back in those days, you would take the nets down. It wasn't organized. It was someone handed you a knife, and you got put up on people's shoulders to take the nets down. Right? And it wasn't, and I have pictures, I have evidence of that. I was fortunate enough to be one of those people that got lifted up to take the net down.
Well, they left you 2 feet.
Yeah. And nowadays it's very orchestrated. You know, you've got a ladder coming out, you've got protective shears, you've got a net that will come down automatically. And
you had your harness on, sir?
Oh, absolutely. And so this is something like, but that's how it was back in those days. That's how it was.
I'll ask Kevin and Skip this question when it comes to this game. You beat Orono, you beat the opponent that you've been zeroing in on forever. Were you worried about a letdown because there's still one more game to play?
This is the truth. If I was worried about a letdown coming up, I would go into the locker room and give it to Kevin. And all the other players would sit and, wow, we want to let the team down. And it really worked. It worked well, and Kevin took it so well. Kevin was the type of player that regardless of how he did, he looked at his mistakes and would talk about that. He'd never discuss how well he did it in the game, and he's just a great leader, besides being one of the top 25 players in the state that year. But it makes such a difference when you have a leader that's a good player and never takes the credit, gives the credit to the ball players that he's playing with, and that makes a huge difference to wins and losses.
Ponies move on to the state championship, and they're going to play the Madomic Valley Panthers. Undefeated, 21-0. Foxcroft Academy, undefeated, 21-0. Dave, you were writing, you were reporting on this. This is a dream matchup.
Yeah, it was the only two undefeated teams left in the state at that point, and they ended up playing each other at the Augusta Civic Center. And again, you got to remember this period of time. There's no YouTube. There's no live streaming of games. You don't know anything about the opponents. And the only thing that Foxcroft knew about Madomic was what they saw on box scores and what they saw on a roster. And their roster was very impressive. We had Al Barron at 6'6", and 6'4". And 6'4", Foxcroft hadn't come up against a team that tall all season, if not forever. And they were coming into the tournament having averaged 90 points a game in the Western Maine tournament. And in quarterfinals in the Western Maine tournament, they beat Camden Rockport in the quarterfinals. Camden Rockport was the defending state champion, and Madomic beat them by 40 points. So it was, I mean, it was this mythical giant that was out there that was left for Foxcroft to try to slay, and boy, they were incredibly impressive.
So we get to the championship game. What do you, Kevin, you remember anything leading up, the week leading up to the championship game, practices? Was it light? Was it, you know, a stodgy atmosphere? How was the atmosphere the week leading up to the championship game?
I think it's pretty accurate to say that I think the genius of Skip's coaching was that not only did he know X's and O's, not only did he, you know, was his practice preparation and game preparation just so sharp, but it's how it's his ability to communicate with us players. He knew exactly which buttons to push individually on players and what buttons to push on the team to get us to play the best we could. So I think leading up to that game, there was a certain amount of nerves, but we knew we were going to go in prepared. And if I remember correctly, we knew we weren't going to run with Madomic. We just weren't going to do that. We had a team that we were playing, they averaged over 94 points a game in the Western Maine tournament. We gave up 48 points a game in our Eastern Maine tournament. So something's going to have to give there a little bit. So we had to go in with that mindset, and we had to try to control the basketball. So, and I just want to say this also. The magic of what we did and the magnitude of what we did in our universe we lived in can't be measured without what Madomic did as well. The team that they had with Al and his teammates, it created this perfect matchup. And for anybody who's seen pictures of that game, photographs of that game, you can see how large the crowd was, and some of you probably were even there. It just showed that, you know, we certainly had to do something to try to counter their offensive firepower, and I think we went into practice that week well prepared. Skip had us prepared, and we just had to execute.
Dave, what do you remember about the game? What are some of the lasting memories about that game?
The first memory that comes to mind was the FA band. I was sitting at courtside, and the band was over my right shoulder, and all the Foxcroft fans were there. There's one of the chapters is entitled FA Band of Brothers, which basically goes into the influence that the band had on the basketball team. And before the game, the band would always play The Horse, and that was sort of became an anthem for Foxcroft basketball. And so they played it once, and I remember the crowd all the Foxcroft fans around the band. The band's standing up and playing the song, and all the fans are standing around the band, and they're clapping along with the song. And it was very impressive. It was intimidating to see the show of support and spirit behind this team that the band and its fans were showing the team. And they generally only played it once, but apparently it was so successful they decided to do it twice. And it was the same response. It was everyone standing up, and you're talking about 3,000 to 4,000 fans from Foxcroft, pretty much the whole town, is standing up and clapping to this song, and it's like it was in unison. You know, it was like we're right behind you. It was just the bond between the bands. Dick Hatt says he still listens to that song. He's in Florida, and I said, Dave, I've listened to that song all the time. And it was just an incredible show of support, which basically came along with the sign, the last one in town, turn off the lights. It was very encapsulated the spirit of the team, and that was shown in that pregame. That's what I remember about that.
I just want to quickly add, where our bench was in the gym, you guys remember?
Yeah.
Right behind us was the bleachers, and that's where the band was. And our band, the Foxcroft Academy band, was just, I mean, they were clearly one, if not the best in the state. Their rendition of the national anthem, if any of you remember that, their rendition of the national anthem, we got to sit there, 11 games that season, 2 Christmas tournament games, 9 home games. We got to listen to the national anthem. And it still stirs me that if you didn't get stirred by that version of the national anthem, you were asleep or you had earplugs in. Unbelievable in terms of just the quality of that music. And by the time they finished, you just felt ready to go.
Mr. Bush, we're going to skip ahead to the last cut on the state championship game. Let's relive a little history, folks, from February 28, 1975. John Spruce on the call, the Foxcroft Ponies, the Madomic Valley Panthers, the final seconds of the state championship game.
14 seconds left. A big 1-and-1 right here for the big 6'8" All-State center. Shot is up there. Saucer in, no good. Rebound loose on the floor. Comes away now. Delay into the front court. He drives. He stops. It's up. It's around. No good. Loose Nelson to the board. Way down 4, 3. Mitchell has it. Almost still on the way. Foul in 1 second. Foxcroft Academy is a class state team. Tournament champs, we do believe. 1 second left. That was not a foul. Check that. That was a traveling violation. But I think that what Coach Hanson's calling his team over now. Madomic Valley is taking a timeout. They're going to get the ball. Let's set the stage. 1 second left. Madomic Valley will get the ball in the low front court. Ponies, I'm sure Coach Hanson's saying, fellas, whatever you do, don't foul them. Give them that shot, but don't foul them. And then we've only got 1 second to kill off that clock. John, you're shaking like a leaf. I'm shaking like a leaf. What do you think? Oh, I don't know, John, but it's been one heck of a ball game, I think. Those fans across the way of Foxcroft are up training, and we're number 1, and they have the right to be. Still, there's 1 second on the clock. I know we can get our hopes up pretty high, though, with 1 second left to play. I really hope so. 56-53. I hope you fans in Dover-Foxcroft can sit still, because this has been some kind of a ball game. Erickson is going to inbound the pass. High pass batted away by Nelson. It's a buzzer, and the Foxcroft Academy basketball team, number 1, South Team. The Foxcroft Academy fans just loving their team. 56-53. We're going to have to go back to the station, and we will be back with a close and a wrap up the presentation. And woohoo!
One of the most underrated calls ever. John Spruce on WDME back in 1975. Just a sea of maroon and white at that point, wasn't it? I mean, just after the win, it was just so crazy.
Yeah. The fans obviously stormed the court. One of the persons I talked to a lot of people, John Champion, Wayne's son, decided his mission after the game was to get the game ball. So he's making his way through the crowd, and he finally comes to the game ball, and somebody smacks him in the nose, he ends up breaking his nose. He's got blood all over the place. He says, I had tears from the pain and tears from the victory, but poor John suffered a broken nose trying to get the game ball, and I think we still end up getting it in the trophy case. Yes.
We have it, probably bloodstains and all.
Yes.
If I go look at it. Kevin and Skip, I'll ask you folks as we start to wind this up here a bit. The feeling of that, again, Kevin, you started as a freshman, lost in the quarterfinals. Sophomore, lost in the semifinals. Junior, lost in the regional finals. Senior, you win the whole darn thing. And that doesn't happen. That doesn't seem to happen too often when you look at the lineage of high school basketball in the state. What did it feel like?
We just had a really good team. We did. We had a group of guys. We've been friends since I went to Dover in the 8th grade, and we were on that 8th grade team like David mentioned, and we won a championship back in 8th grade. But we were all friends. Once we get on the court, though, don't get me wrong. Once we get on the court in practice and in drills, we got after it. We had some of our scrimmages were probably just as competitive as some of our games that we played some teams. So how did it feel? It just felt, it felt like it was a huge relief for one thing, just to sort of realize that what we just done, and that now the season was over, and then it's just a huge relief.
Coach, can you talk about how satisfying that was? Can you talk about how satisfying it was with the group of guys that you had, just to win that championship?
I mean, it was a terrific group of young men, and they'd come to practice every night ready to go, and be disappointed a lot of times when practice was over. But they worked hard. They knew they had in their sights maybe a championship, but they also knew they had to work very diligently for that, and seldom ever let down in practice or a game. And a great group of people to be surrounded by. And I can't say this enough, I'll say one more. Kevin, he was a superstar, and he was a superstar throughout the state. And anywhere I'd go to a conference or something like that, they'd ask, what type of kid is he, this and that. And the best, he would always take responsibility for things that he didn't do well, and take the responsibility with other kids that didn't do well, and that makes such a difference in particularly a high school game, and he was the best. Lucky I coached him.
Dave, one thing we haven't touched on here, so state championship, the name of the book. Last one out of town, turned out the lights. Most of us know the lineage of that story, but it's in the book, so let's talk about it.
Well, I talked to about 50 to 60 people for the book, and I probably could have talked to another 50 or 60 for the book. And the common theme that kept coming back in pretty much every conversation I had with somebody was, and I would mention a sign. And they went, oh, I remember that sign, I'll never forget that sign. So I tried to track down, Neil Johnson's was a custodian at Settamocha High School and Morton Elementary School, and sort of a prankster. And he's the one that was sort of the inspiration by making this sign. And so he erects the sign, him and Ted Harvey, and they put it up on the bottom of Berry Hill Road out here on the way to Bangor, and there's only one road to Bangor, and it's right there for them to see. And it's like this 6x8 by 10 by 12 plywood sign, the last one out of town, turn out the lights. And it's a common refrain among small schools come basketball time, come tournament time, but I'd never seen it so prominently displayed before, type thing. So that, based on the conversations I was having throughout the book, it came to me that was the obvious title. I mean, it's not a good idea to have a book cover with 10 words as your title for the book instead of 2 or 3. So I was worried that would be suggested to me otherwise that I have a smaller title, but that to me it had to be the title. everyone remembers that sign, and like I said, it encapsulated the spirit of this community and almost the obsession with this team. And going in, they saw it 3 consecutive days. They put the sign up on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, quarterfinals, semifinals, finals. Those kids are going by, and all the fans are going by and seeing that sign. It's like, wow.
Last one out of 10. Anyone remember that sign? Of course you do. You all do.
Yeah.
So it's the name of the book 50 years later.
Yeah.
What haven't we touched on here tonight, Dave, that you would like to add?
2 things. Number one, throughout the book, or in leading up to the thing on the book, was that Skip, and just the situation he was coming into, and he had to make many gut-wrenching decisions, and they weren't all popular. And it seemed like every time that Skip made a decision, it worked out right. And in the book, in Skip in the book, I think I understated 2 things about you. The conviction you had to make those decisions, and the courage you had to make those decisions. And I think people should remember you for that, and how that contributed to a state championship. And the other thing was the contribution from everybody. I mean, everybody I talked to would have a story, and it would lead to another story, and I'm going all over the place. One story led to another story, and everybody was very forthcoming with information. And wherever I went, I remember I tracked down Al Barron. I think I got him through LinkedIn or something like that, and I talked to Al. Al became an incredible source, and the perspective he provided from the Potomac Valley side was incredible. And you know, Al and I have sort of become pen pals now. I mean, it seems like we're texting every day now. A couple of weeks ago, Al sends me a text, "Hey Dave, Maine had an earthquake," you know? But I appreciate the honesty, how candid they were, because it was a difficult subject to talk about for Tom Philbrick and Al Barron, and I think Kevin and I have talked about it, and you and I have talked about it, is based on the reaction I got and the help I got from someone like Al Barron for this, you almost say, gee, I wish he had won a state championship. He deserved to win a state champion. And I told him the other day, I said, Al, you're still a champion in my heart. I mean, he was just fantastic in making this book and making it all come together. And another thing, I'm sorry, is I keep hearing this referred to as your book. Hey, Dave, it's your book. It's not my book, it's our book, because it's our memories. And everybody shared their memories. I just wrote the book, but everybody shared their memories. And again, we're talking 50 years ago, and people have still got this gut-wrenching feeling about how wonderful that victory was and what it meant to the town and what it meant to the team. And I just wanted to, I was just happy to share everybody's memories. So thank you so much on that. I really appreciate that.
Okay, folks, we're over time a little bit, which I kind of thought was going to be the case, but it is what it is. We're going to open it up if you have a few questions. We don't want to go too long, but if you have any questions you'd like to ask Dave, Kevin, Skip, all 3 of them, I can come around with a wireless mic. We can get cozy, whatever you'd like to do. And if you don't, that's okay too. I don't know if I see any out there tonight.
Please raise your hand.
I got one thing, Kobe.
Yes, sir.
Something wasn't brought up. Kevin and Skip, back then there was no 3 points and there was no dunking allowed. I'm sure that has something to do with Kevin.
What do you think?
Very good observation. It is. It's changed. The game has changed, and that 3-point line is actually what has done it for the game of basketball. It's changed that. But also, they didn't allow dunking even my freshman year in college. It was against the rules to dunk. That's created an aspect of the game that's exciting for fans. It's exciting for players. But we couldn't do it. In fact, dunking back then, you better not get caught doing it or trying to do it, either in warm-ups. We weren't encouraged to do it in practice, those of us who could. And so we just, it wasn't even really thought of. And if you see old film footage, I've seen old film footage of players in college. When I was in high school, there was a team, UCLA. And UCLA had a player in, his name was the late, great Bill Walton. And he was a great player. I just loved the way he played. But he would oftentimes, there was no dunking allowed when he played. He would go up and he would lay the ball over the rim without dunking. It would just seem so not like today. And that, I think back then we had, the basket was still 10 feet high. The foul lane was still the same width. The foul lane was still the same length. The courts were still about the same size. But that element of dunking as well as the three-point shot has changed the game dramatically. And I just, I think, let me say this. If Kenny Burchell, if we had the three-point line, I can guarantee you his point per game average would have gone up logarithmically because he could shoot the ball. So I will say that.
Any more questions out there tonight? Yeah, right down front. Yes. When we're done, we want the team up here on the stage. Team and coaches, cheerleaders, if we have any out here tonight. I think I saw Lindy Warren here. So, yes, please. We want a picture with all of you. Any other questions? Dave will be signing books. Yeah. Yeah. The players, I think, have signed the book already. So, yep, they've signed a book. Yep. Question was leadership qualities from a teen to adulthood.
Yeah, really good question. And I got a really good answer, yes. Because I got a lot of how, I think philosophically and idealistically, the things that I believe in and the way I conducted myself in my work life and so forth came from Skip's mentorship to me. He was also somebody, and my teammates may remember this, when I when I was being recruited, we'd have college coaches showing up at our games and practices. And it got to be a little bit of an annoyance after a while, because it just, we wanted to go to practice, we wanted to play, then we had to go home and do homework and come back to school. He was a buffer for me, enormously, in many respects. And he actually entertained coaches, college coaches that would come up to visit, and take the pressure off of me. Because back then, if you remember, we had no social media. In terms of our phones that we had at home, I didn't have caller ID. So I'd get a call at night, and if it was a college coach or something I didn't know, so they would want to talk, and I didn't want to talk, and so forth. So I just remember he acted as a great buffer for me. And in terms of just his leadership that he displayed to me is something that I try to carry on in my life.
Any other questions? There are a few people.
Can I do one more humorous thing? For Skip. He literally would give you the shirt off his back for me. And why do I say that? Our senior year, we got new uniforms, home uniforms. They all came in right before the Orono game. They all came in, but the jersey that I got that came in was like 6 inches too short. I couldn't tuck it in. And when I say he literally gave me the shirt off his back, he had a coaching polo shirt with this sand knit type of fabric, which is the same as our uniforms. He gave it to my mother, who cut the bottom part off of his shirt, sewed it on the bottom part of mine, so I could tuck it in. He gave me the shirt off his back.
just folks, we're really, we're overwhelmed by the crowd here this evening. And there's a few of the people that are here, of course, members of the 1975 team. This is your book. This is your story that we're telling 50 years later. And it's been so much fun to learn more about it and hear all about you guys and what happened. The coaches, Coach Hanson and Coach Kaya, who are here tonight, Coach Clement, who couldn't be here, our cheerleaders that are here tonight, the 1975 cheerleaders are all part of this. If you were a student at Foxcroft Academy at the time, or someone from the town, you just don't forget this. You know why? Because it hasn't happened since. I know, I was on the sidelines. It doesn't happen, okay? Sadly, a few members of the team have passed away, since 1975. Dave Ingraham, Steve Mountford, Jim Herring just passed away, one of the managers for the team. So we sadly miss them. We remember them here this evening on this night that they would have been very, very happy to be here and share it with all of you folks. So we'll share it for them here tonight. Todd Hanson, Skip's son, is here. Todd and Skip, I don't know if many of you know, probably most of you know this, but Todd had a highly successful coaching career himself at Brunswick High School and won a state championship in 2002 with the Dragons. And they may be the only father-son coaching duo that has won a state championship in the state of Maine. So Todd, thank you for being here tonight. His wife Sue, thank you for being here. Todd also is the director right now of the Maine Basketball Hall of Fame. If you haven't been down to the Cross Center to check out the Hall of Fame, go down sometime, do yourself a favor. You see a lot of basketball history down there. The Foxcroft Academy team was actually inducted a couple of years ago in 2023. They were inducted as a team, a legend team from the Basketball Hall of Fame. I want to thank Patrick Myers, Derek Bushman, all the Center Theater staff. I want to give them a round of applause. We couldn't have done it without them tonight. And thank you very much for your expertise. And again, Al Barron here from Adomic Valley. We talked rivalries, and rivalries probably have changed over the years just because of social media, and everyone kind of knows everybody. But Al, if you get a chance to talk to him, you're going to like him right off the bat, I promise you. And you're going to be like, you know what? He deserved one back in '75, although we're going to keep it here, okay?
Don't blame you.
Larry Seidlinger from Lincoln County Television, thank you for being here tonight. His interview with Kevin and Al and Dave, we'll put that up on our Foxcroft Academy Facebook page, our social media pages. If you've been following our social media pages on Foxcroft Academy for the last couple of months, we've been chronicling the season. And the cool thing about this year is the calendar fell exactly right. That if Foxcroft played on Saturday, December 20th, it was actually Saturday, December 20th this year. So it worked out so well when I was scheduling these posts. So coming up on the 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd, it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday this year as well. Those highlights, I've got permission to run them on social media. So for many people, literally this is the first time you've seen this stuff. So share it if you would, and at least share in the memories of the Foxcroft Academy basketball team and what they did. Dave, I can't thank you enough for coming up here tonight. This book is, I read it one day. That's the fastest I've ever read a book. I sat through dinner and read the book, and I read the stories. And yeah, some of them I've heard before, but a lot of them I haven't heard before. And you did something really, really good for this community. And I hope you're rewarded in spades for this one. So, Dave, anything more you'd like to say?
I just had, and I keep coming back to the same word, I had a blast doing this book. And I mean, I have not smiled and laughed as much in years until I started talking to all these guys and doing the stories they told. It was just an incredible, I mean, it rekindled friendships, it created new friendships. It reconnected me to this team, to this town, and to this state, and I'm grateful for that.
Well, folks, at this time, Dave will be down front. He'll be signing books. Feel free to get your book signed. And yes, there's plenty of food. Don't forget, there's plenty of food out back. Scott Mountford, Scott Mountford, thank you so much. He's the one that said, you know what, I want to cater to, I want this thing catered, I want it done the right way. And Scott, thank you so much for doing this. We appreciate all of you being here tonight, folks. If you're in town anytime, swing on up to Foxcroft Academy. Please swing in, see me, see the trophy case, see the gym, relive a little bit of history. Coming up this summer for your 50th reunion for the class of 75, we're going to do another similar gathering because we can get a few more teammates up here this summer as well, because it's going to be a little warmer than 10 degrees in August. But we appreciate you all being here tonight, and wherever you drive home, folks, please drive home safely. And folks, ride on ponies, the Class B 1975 state champions. Can I get the players to come on up on stage? Can I get the players coming up on stage, please, right now, so we can get a picture?